How do your students feel you coming from the Phantom? Do they think, oh, he knows it all? Were they respectful there?
I tell you what, if they thought I knew it all, then they quickly got disavowed of that. I think, Mike, as I got to be an instructor, the Phantom had just gone out of service, and the Buccaneer was going out of service as well. So the ex-Phantom and Buccaneer instructors, it was almost like we had a bit of kudos because the students weren't going to be able to fly those aeroplanes. Whereas for the Tornado F3 and GR instructors that we had, the Jaguar and Harrier instructors, the students were going to fly their aeroplane. And so we were oddities, I suppose. And do you know what, we played up to it as well. We had like a Phantom Mafia on the squadron, and there was a kind of a ground attack Mafia as well, and we bantered each other, and the students saw all of this because we shared a crew room with them, and they got involved in it, and it was all part of, yeah, we learn how to fly these aeroplanes, but we're also learning how to be frontline pilots as well, and that was part of our teaching as well, I think.
Yeah, so like obviously you can't just be a good pilot. You have to be good in the crew room, as it were.
Certainly did in my day. You were judged by how good you were in the air, and then how good you were in the bar and the crew room. Now things changed over time, but we were still. I stand to this day. We were still looking at students in the crew room, not making notes in black books or anything, but just saying, is this somebody that I'd like to stand shoulder to shoulder with at the front line? Are they a good egg? And for the students that were really, really good eggs, we'd cut them some slack, because I know that I got some slack cut me in when I was going through training. I was struggling. Maybe people saw something in me that we want at the front line, and that's what I used to look for. And if somebody was struggling and they were a good egg, they became my pet project. And quite a few of us would take on a pet project and try our best to get them through, because they just had some qualities that we wanted.
So how did it work if someone was struggling through flying training and they were a bit arrogant? Did you come across that in your time?
Yeah, with a couple of guys. So we were able to, in those days, because we had so many hours available and lots of trips on the course, you could, if you needed to, use one trip just to adjust somebody's attitude. And that certainly happened in my day when I was a student, and we certainly tried it ourselves. I flew with two guys. One who he had a golden pair of hands. It was probably the best pair of hands of his generation. Wow. But he knew it, and he didn't work at it, and his whole demeanour was just wrong. It was so easy for him. I only flew once with him. And I had this thing in my head when I briefed him. God, he was so arrogant, and he was. When we brief, we like to see people who are receptive in briefs. This guy was kind of lolling on the chair like that, and I gave him a little bit of a, are you up for this? Do you want to fly this? So, tell your face, that you want to do this. Anyway, he rubbed me out the wrong way, and he had a bad reputation on the squadron. Every time we had an authorisers meeting, it would come up about his attitude. So I just thought, God, the first mistake he makes, I'm going to come down on him like a ton of bricks. Just show him he's not quite as good as he is. And that's how we used to adjust people's attitudes, if we needed to. It was such a rare occurrence. Anyway, we went flying, and he was awesome. He was awesome in absolutely everything. I'd never been more disappointed in my life. I think at the end of it, no kidding, we were doing a high-level close formation trip, which is very difficult handling on the engine and the controls. I'll absolutely guarantee he handled the aeroplane better than I did.
Wow.
The Hawk had two grab handles up here, and we used to pull ourselves around when we were doing air combat. I think 2/3 of the way through the trip, I think I was just hanging on the grab handles like this with my head down, thinking, for God's sake, just let it end. Got back down, and I had to give him a great mark because he was spectacular. But I gave him a little bit of an attitude chat, and had no effect on him whatsoever. Wow. And it came to the course was split into two at that point. There was the advanced flying training old style Valley stuff. They got their wings and then they came to us on TAC weapons. And we were all just saying, well, we'll wait until we get him in air combat and we'll just kick his ass and maybe that'll humble him a little bit. He never got there. On his final handling test, his wings trip, they set him up with the chief instructor and chief instructor chopped him on one trip.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that was shocking.
Wow.
But leading up to that, the CI was just sick of getting reports about this guy's attitude. And he was a much more experienced instructor. He was able to put this guy under so much pressure. I think he barely knew his first name when he landed. And it sounds brutal, but that's the kind of guy you can't have at the front line. You know, it's a real band of brothers and sisters at the front line, and anybody who doesn't fit in becomes toxic like that. So yeah.